He built his company from nothing. Just a laptop, a dream, and countless sleepless nights. At first, no one believed in him. His friends laughed when he said he was going to start a business. His parents told him to get a real job. But he didn't listen. He couldn't. Something inside him burned too strong to quit. He worked out of a small, cold apartment. The kind where the heater barely worked and the rent was always late. He'd stay up until 4 a.m. learning code, sending emails, and building prototypes no one wanted to buy. Yet, for 2 years nothing happened. No clients. No investors. Just rejection after rejection. Then one day everything changed. A small company in Seattle decided to take a chance on his product. A simple software tool he had built by himself. That one deal turned into 10. 10 turned into hundreds. Within a year he had an office. Within 2 he had a team. And within 5, he had a company worth over $12 million. But with money came attention. And attention brought people. Some who smiled too much, some who promised too much. That's how he met them, his so-called partners. They were sharp, charming, and confident. Everything he thought he needed to grow his business further. They spoke the language of success. He let them in. At first it was perfect. Together they scaled the company faster than ever. New clients, new cities, new opportunities. For the first time he felt like he was winning. But then little things started to change. They started holding meetings without him. They made decisions he wasn't told about. And when he asked questions they told him not to worry. He noticed money going missing. Contracts signed without his approval. But every time he raised a concern they smiled and said, "Relax, you're just overthinking. You should focus on the creative side, we'll handle the business." He believed them. Because they were his friends. Until the day it all came crashing down. It was a Tuesday. He walked into the office, and his keycard didn't work. The security guard, who once greeted him with a smile every morning, couldn't meet his eyes. When he finally got upstairs, there they were, his partners, sitting around the conference table. On the screen behind them, legal documents. One of them looked up and said calmly, "It's done. The board voted. You're out." He laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. Then he saw his name, crossed out on every contract. His ownership reduced to 0. They had used his trust against him. Every signature, every paper he had signed without reading closely, they had planned it all. They took everything. The office. The brand. The money. They even changed the company name. He walked out of that building in the pouring rain with nothing but his laptop and the clothes he was wearing. No job. No friends. No home. Everyone said it was over for him. But they didn't know him. He didn't build that company for money. He built it because he refused to live a life where someone else decided his worth. And now they had given him something far more powerful than success, a reason to rise again. He looked back at the office one last time, rain dripping down his face, and whispered to himself, "This isn't the end. This is where I start again." For the first few weeks he disappeared. No one knew where he went, not even his closest friend from the old days. He rented a tiny room in the outskirts of the city. No furniture, no Wi-Fi, just 4 gray walls and silence. He spent days staring at the ceiling, asking himself one question. How did I let this happen? But then something inside him changed. It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. He realized he had spent years building someone else's dream, even though it started as his. They might have taken his company, but they didn't take him. His knowledge, his skills, his hunger. So he began again. Not with revenge, but with a plan. He started freelancing under a fake name, selling his ideas online. The same ideas those men had once dismissed as too risky. Every night he worked until sunrise, coding, designing, creating. He didn't post on social media. He didn't tell anyone what he was doing. He just worked. In 6 months he launched a new project. Something cleaner, faster, smarter than the product they stole from him. He didn't need investors this time. He didn't need approval. And when people started noticing, he didn't stop. He doubled down. By the end of the first year, his new company had more users than the one they'd stolen. But he wasn't satisfied yet. He wanted them to see him again. So he bought a booth at the same tech expo where they were showcasing his old company. When he arrived, dressed in a simple black suit, no one recognized him at first. Until he walked past their booth. The men froze. The one who had once called him too naive to lead looked pale. "Didn't expect to see me again, huh?" he said quietly. The man tried to smile. "We heard you, moved on." He smiled back. "I did. But looks like I caught up." He turned away and walked toward his own booth, brighter, busier, and 3 times more crowded. The press noticed. Articles appeared overnight. Former founder outsmarts ex-partners with revolutionary comeback. Within weeks, investors were calling him again. Within months, his company's valuation surpassed his old one. And when a reporter asked him in an interview if he wanted revenge, he just laughed. "I don't do revenge," he said. "I build. They destroyed my past, I built my future." But late that night, as he stood by the window of his new office, the skyline glowing beneath him, he couldn't help but think. Maybe revenge doesn't always need blood or fire. Sometimes the best revenge is success so loud they can't ignore it. He looked at his reflection in the glass and smiled. Because for the first time in years he didn't see the man who lost everything. He saw the man who rebuilt himself. Success changes everything, except the memories. It had been 2 years since that day at the expo. His company, Novatech, had become a global name. Investors called daily. His team tripled. He was featured on magazine covers, podcasts, interviews. Everywhere he went, people looked at him not as the man who lost everything, but as the one who built it all again. But inside he still felt hollow. He'd built empires, yes, but the echo of betrayal never really left. He could still see the night it all fell apart. The dim light in the office, the signed document that stripped him of everything, the fake smiles of the men he once called brothers. Their words haunted him. "It's just business, Alex. You're too emotional for leadership. You should thank us, we'll take it from here." And then, silence. He remembered walking out in the rain that night, holding nothing but a folder with his last few designs. The cold water on his face felt like knives. But now, standing on the rooftop of his own building, that memory felt distant, like a bad dream. Until he got the message. It came on a Wednesday afternoon. His assistant, Jenna, walked into his office with an uncertain look. "Alex, there's someone here asking to see you. Says it's urgent." He barely looked up. "Who is it?" She hesitated. "They say their names are Marcus and David." For a moment the air froze. Marcus, David. The two faces from his past, the same men who'd once stolen everything. Alex leaned back in his chair, feeling that old mix of heat and ice crawl up his spine. "Send them in," he said quietly. The door opened and there they were, older, thinner, and no longer confident. Their expensive suits couldn't hide the desperation in their eyes. "Alex," Marcus said, trying for a smile. "You look good." "Better than the last time we met," Alex replied, his tone calm but sharp. David sat down first. "We didn't come to talk about the past." Alex folded his hands. "Then why are you here?" Marcus exhaled. "We need your help. The company, our company, it's falling apart. Investors pulled out. Lawsuits, bad press, we're drowning." For a second Alex said nothing. He just watched them, the men who once laughed as they erased his name from everything he'd built. "And you think I'd help you?" he said finally. David leaned forward. "We were wrong, Alex. About everything. You were the heart of the company and we didn't see it. But you proved it. You won. Please, just hear us out." Alex stood and walked to the window. Below, the city moved, cars, lights, people living their own stories. He built all this from nothing. He had no reason to help them. But something in him hesitated. Not pity. Not sympathy. Just closure. "Tell me," he said, turning around. "What exactly do you want?" Marcus swallowed hard. "A merger. Join us again. Bring Novatech under our umbrella. Together we can rebuild what we lost." Alex almost laughed. "You mean what you lost? I already rebuilt. Without you." The silence that followed was heavy. You could almost hear the clock ticking on the wall. Then David said softly, "We're not asking for forgiveness. We're asking for survival." Alex looked at them, really looked. They weren't villains anymore. Just broken men drowning in their own greed. The power they stole had turned to poison. He remembered something his father used to say. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's living in a way they'll never reach. And suddenly he understood. He didn't need to crush them. They were already crushed. He just needed to walk away. "I'll give you one thing," Alex said finally. "You taught me how much I can survive. For that I'm grateful." Marcus blinked. "Does that mean?" "No," Alex interrupted. "It means I wish you luck. You'll need it." He pressed a button on his desk. "Jenna, please show them out." They tried to speak, but he'd already turned his back. The door closed behind them and with it the last piece of his past. That night, Alex drove out of the city alone. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. No phone, no entourage, no cameras. Just him, the road, and the sound of rain on the windshield. The same sound from the night everything ended years ago. He parked near an old warehouse, the one where his first startup began. The lights were gone, the walls cracked, but the memories were still there. He stepped inside, his footsteps echoing. It smelled like dust and ghosts. He ran his fingers along a rusted desk, the same one where he'd once sketched the logo for his first product. Back then he was just a kid with a laptop and a dream. Now he was a CEO with an empire. But somewhere along the way he'd forgotten why he started. He sat on the cold floor and closed his eyes. It wasn't about money anymore. Not fame. Not power. It was about freedom. The freedom to create, to build, to live without needing anyone's approval. And for the first time in years he smiled, not the polished smile for cameras but a real one. The kind that comes when you finally let go. He whispered into the dark. You did it. You made it. And the echo replied softly. Now live. The next morning, Alex returned to the city. He didn't tell anyone where he'd been. He simply walked into his office, greeted his team, and started a new project. Something fresh, something that wasn't about revenge or competition. When a journalist asked him a few weeks later, "What's the secret to your success?" he thought for a moment, then said, "I stopped fighting to prove people wrong. I started building to prove myself right." A year later, Marcus and David's company officially went bankrupt. Their story was buried under headlines about Novatech's latest innovation. But Alex didn't celebrate. He didn't post about it, didn't gloat, didn't mention their names ever again. Because deep down he knew. They weren't the villains anymore. They were just a lesson, a painful, necessary lesson in the price of trust and the cost of pride. He stood once more on the rooftop of his building, looking at the city glowing beneath him, the same city that had once watched him fall. This time he wasn't thinking about revenge. He was thinking about peace. And as the wind brushed against his face, he realized something. You don't win when your enemies lose. You win when you stop needing them to. He smiled faintly, then turned away from the skyline and walked back inside, ready to build again. But this time, for himself.